In the past 24 hours, Ukraine's missile and artillery units have struck one Russian command post, 2 artillery units in firing position, and 1 electronic warfare system. The Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine hit 2 enemy air defense missile systems. The relevant statement was made by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. In particular, Ukraine's Air Force has launched 8 strikes on enemy personnel and military equipment clusters over the past day, and 2 strikes on Russian air defense missile systems. The Ukrainian military shot down 6 different enemy unmanned aerial vehicles (UAVs), including 3 Shahed suicide drones. Ukrainian missile and artillery units hit 1 Russian command post, 4 enemy personnel clusters, 2 artillery units in firing position, and 1 electronic warfare system. Meanwhile, Russian troops launched 23 missile strikes and 43 air strikes, and opened fire with multiple launch rocket systems (MLRS) 97 times. During missile attacks, the enemy used different types of missiles. Most of them were shot down by the Ukrainian military, but some did hit the target. In particular, 5 Russian S-300 missiles struck Kupiansk, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk and Konstantinivka. The threat of Russian air and missile strikes is persisting all over Ukraine, as the enemy continues to use the tactics of terror, the General Staff stressed. At the same time, Russian troops are focusing efforts on the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka directions. The enemy launched 46 attacks. The fiercest battles are underway for the Donetsk regions Bakhmut and Marinka. In the Volyn and Polishcha directions, the situation remained rather unchanged. In the Siversky and Slobozhansky directions, Russian troops launched artillery strikes on the Chernihiv regions Hasaikivka, Zalizny Mist and Muravi, the Sumy regions Tovstodubo, Bakisk, Stary Verki, Iskryskivshina, Volfin, Unikivka, Moritsia, Popivka and Slavhorod, the Kharkiv regions Hoptivka, Varvarivka, Boruvatka, Ohertsev, Hatish, Plitanivka, Taik, Malavovcha, Budarki, Zemlyanki, Vilkuvatka, Vorochansk and Kotny. In the Kupiansk direction, Russian invaders attempted to improve their tactical position and conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near Mashutivka and Stelmakivka. The enemy launched mortar and artillery strikes on the Kharkiv regions Kamyanka, Kolodyazne, Krasny Persh, Fyholivka, Novomlinsk, Vorokna, Kindrashivka, Lyman Pershi, Tabevka, and the Luhansk region's Stelmakivka. In the Lyman direction, Russian occupiers conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near Bilohorivka. The enemy launched artillery strikes on the Luhansk regions Makivka and Bilohorivka, the Donetsk regions Yampolivka and Spern. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on May 5 that Russia had lost 193,210 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes 620 casualties Russian forces suffered just over the past day. In the Bakhmut direction, Russian troops continue offensive actions. The enemy conducted unsuccessful offensive actions in the city of Bakhmut, as well as towards Ivanovsky and Stupochki. The enemy shelling affected the Donetsk regions Orikovo-Vasilivka, Bodanivka, Bakhmut, Ivanovsky, Chasev Yar, Stupochki, Zalyansk and New York. In the Avdiivka direction, Russian invaders did not conduct offensive actions. The enemy opened fire on the Donetsk regions Avdiivka, Pervomaisk, Netailov and Karlivka. In the Marinka direction, Ukraine's defense forces repelled numerous enemy attacks near Marinka. The enemy also shelled the Donetsk region's Georgivka. In the Shakhtarsk direction, Russian troops did not conduct offensive actions. The enemy launched an airstrike near Vlika Novosilka, and opened fire on Novomikhailivka, Vodian, Vuhledar, Prekostivka and Vlika Novosilka. In the Zaporizhia and Kherson directions, Russian occupiers continue holding defense. Russian troops launched an airstrike on Orikhiv, Kizimys and Stanislav, and shelled the Donetsk regions Ramivka and Novopil, the Zaporizhia regions Olhaivsky, Poltavka, Malinivka, Huliaipol, Charivny, Malotokmichka, Novodanilivka, Orikhiv, Novoandriivka, Stepo, Plavny and Kamyansk, the Kherson regions Antonivka, Molodizhny and Zelenivka. In the Zaporizhia region's temporarily occupied city of Enerhodar, Russian invaders arranged the so-called evacuation, for the families of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant's workers. At the same time, Zaporizhia NPP's employees are not allowed to leave the city. Russian occupation authorities announced the evacuation of people to recreation centers and hotels in Berdyansk and Kyrillivka. However, those who agreed had been taken to Russia's Rostov region and accommodated in tent camps. Meanwhile, last week most Russian collaborators used personal cars to flee from the Zaporizhia region's Vlika-Bilozerka towards the temporarily occupied Crimea. Ukraine's Air Force launches 16 strikes on enemy positions. Over the past day, the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine launched 16 strikes on enemy personnel and military equipment clusters. This is stated in the report by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine as of 6 o'clock, May 10, published on Facebook. Over the past 24 hours, the enemy launched 30 missile strikes, 61 airstrikes, and 89 MLRS attacks on the positions of our troops and populated settlements. Private residential buildings and other civilian infrastructure objects were destroyed and damaged. Civilian casualties were reported, the report reads. The enemy continues to concentrate its main efforts on Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Mariinka directions. Heavy battles are fought for the cities of Bakhmut and Mariinka. In total, over the past day, 42 enemy attacks were repelled on the specified areas of the front. No signs of the formation of offensive groups were detected in Volyn and Polishcha directions. Certain units of the Russian armed forces continue to be stationed in the territory of the Republic of Belarus. In Severshina and Slobozhenshina directions, the enemy maintains a military presence in the areas bordering Ukraine. Over the past day, the enemy fired mortars and artillery at the settlements of Barilivka, Mashenka, Halahanivka, Leonivka, Oleksandrivka, Buda-Vorobievska, Remiak in Chernihiv region, Zanov Novorodsky, Stara Huta, Shalahin, Novoslobodski, Iskryskivshina, Volfin in Sumy region, Poptivka, Krasny, Zelin, Staritsha, Ohertsev, Vovchansky Kuturi, Karaikny, Malavovcha, Mykolaiivka, and Nestern in Kharkiv region. In Kupiansk direction, the enemy did not conduct offensive operations but launched airstrikes in the areas of Zapadna and Mashutivka settlements. Kamyanka, Topoly, Petro-Ivanivka, Fyholivka, Novomlinsk, Zapadna, Lyman Pershi, Vilshana, Buhavka in Kharkiv region, Novoselivsky and Stelmakivka in Luhansk region came under enemy artillery and mortar fire.